The quake struck at 10:27 in the morning. In the centre of Newcastle, people's first reaction was to rush out of buildings which had swayed under the shockwave. Crowds milled in the streets, each person asking the same question: what happened? The city was brought to a standstill for a moment before the hushed silence was broken by the wail of sirens. The initial response by emergency services was complicated by a breakdown in their communication systems and telephones, and within minutes they were stretched to their limits. Calls for help often delivered in person. Newcastle Hospital was being evacuated. The Tyers Hill TAFE College was on fire. The Newcastle RSL was teetering on the verge of collapse. Buildings were extensively damaged at the junction. In Islington, many older buildings were shattered. Throughout Cooks Hill, terrace houses had been ripped apart. But although their disaster training had not considered an earthquake, emergency services very quickly marshalled their resources where they were most needed. In the coming days, the Newcastle Workers' Club became the focus of attention. 9 bodies would be dragged from the twisted concrete and steel.
Both walls of the auditorium were waving like sails in the wind. And I looked up and I could see the material from the ceiling falling down, and the reason for that was that the roof was coming down as well as the ceiling and the chandeliers.
Howard Gibson has been a cleaner at the club for 22 years. He was in the main auditorium preparing for a big rock concert when the quake struck.
First of all, there's this terrible shaking, and then the ceiling material coming down and raining down like confetti. I first thought was to duck for cover, and because again you talk about 1 or 2 seconds, I suppose, and then of course this terrible fear of well, there's concrete coming down as well, you know, and bricks falling away and so forth. And I thought, well, this could well be it. I thought I might that my number was up.
Not much we can do.
The room just shook. Everybody got thrown onto the floor. It sounded like a big bang. And I thought, and then the shaking, and I thought, oh, it must be a bomb going off, and I asked one of the girls, and she said, there's a bomb going off.
She's all right. She's up that way.
She's up there, she's looking up there.
Straight ahead. Does that make sense to anybody? Right. Hemo, Melbourne, Sutton. What was the other one? We had the Century Theatre at Broadmeadow.
Not Workers Club, the other club, RSL.
Yeah, the RSL at down in town, wasn't it? We had a roof collapse there, but hopefully there's nobody in there. They shouldn't be in there at this stage. They should have already got out. So we're hoping that situation is right, but I can't update you on it.
Would you say the Workers Club was the worst hit?
Well, I can't even tell you that. Honestly, I can't. But it seems to me that there was a lot of people who were in the club at the time, but exactly how many we don't know.
With the collapse of the support walls, the roof came crushing down. Like dominoes, the floors beneath collapsed under the weight. The concertina effect ended at the car park below. More than 50 ambulances were rushed to Newcastle from Sydney and the Central Coast. There was calm and a professional sense of duty amongst those rescue services personnel. With resources taxed to extremes not experienced before, Newcastle was lucky that this scene of human loss was not repeated elsewhere in the city. The grass median strip soon became a makeshift hospital, with doctors and nurses improvising with first aid. These were the kind of conditions usually reserved for a war zone. Leslie Irwin, a nurse at Royal Newcastle Hospital, was at home when she heard the news from a neighbour. For the first 4 hours, she was the only woman treating injured inside the rubble.
Immediately all nurses are on call for any disaster, so I just threw my uniform on and went into town, and I went past the Workers' Club to see if it was true, and there were only a couple of ambulances there at the stage when I got there. So I yelled out to the fellow who seemed to be coordinating the services, and he asked me to stay and to go in and start helping with some of the people, because at that stage they were unaware of how many people were trapped and how many were hurt, and people from the actual employees of the Workers' Club were bringing people out, so it was difficult to gauge how many casualties there were at that stage. At first up, I went up the stairs to the ground level where the poker machines are, and we found one fellow alive there but trapped by his ankle, so we started an IV going in him to give him some fluids. So we were about halfway through getting him out, and he was fairly stable, and then they yelled out that they'd found 4 more people alive down in the rubble, I think in the car park or basement level. It was difficult to tell, it was all one. So we went down there and we found 3 people visible. Another girl was off to the left-hand side, hidden behind poker machines, but she was reasonable, and the 3 older people that we could see were really caught under a lot of rubble. It wasn't just bricks and debris, there was roof sections holding their legs and poker machines on some of the people, so we knew the task ahead was really going to be a long one.